The forgotten tomb beneath the stars. For 1,000 years, the tomb had remained untouched. It was hidden beneath the rocky surface of a dead moon called Varaxia, a place forgotten by both humans and aliens. No map showed it. No signal ever escaped it. But deep inside its heart, a secret waited. A woman lay inside the tomb. Her body was perfectly still, but not decayed. Her chest had 3 large swords stabbed through it. One sword pulsed with black energy. Another shone like frozen lightning. The third looked like an old human blade, rusted yet strong. No one knew who she was, but the energy around her coffin whispered that she was not dead, not fully. Corin Wells was not a hero. He was just a human explorer, a scavenger looking for alien tech to sell. He didn't believe in ancient magic or dead warriors. But when he picked up strange energy readings from Varaxia, he got curious. His ship landed on the dry, cracked ground of the moon, and he stepped out into the stormy wind. Nothing here but dust and ghosts, he muttered, brushing sand off his scanner. But the signal was clear, strong, like a heartbeat under stone. He followed the signal into a dark canyon where the rocks had collapsed long ago. His boots echoed on metal stairs buried beneath the sand. The further he walked, the colder it got. His flashlight flickered as strange symbols appeared on the walls, alien runes, glowing faint blue. They lit the way without wires or batteries. At the bottom, he found a massive door made of black stone. A circular lock in the center looked like a sun split in half. Corin placed his hand on it. The door opened with a deep rumble, and a cold breath of air hit his face. The tomb had opened. Inside he found her, a woman with silver blue skin, her hair floating like it was underwater. She looked peaceful, except for the 3 swords buried in her chest. Around her stone coffin, the walls pulsed with energy. "What is this?" Corin whispered, stepping closer. "She's not human." Suddenly, a voice filled the chamber. "Only the one who walks alone may pull the blade of silence." Corin turned quickly. No one was there. His eye assistant buzzed in his ear. "Warning, unstable energy detected. Recommend immediate retreat." But Corin didn't move. Something about her held him in place. She didn't look dead. She looked trapped, like time itself had frozen her. Then, the human sword started to glow faintly. He felt a strange pull in his chest, like the blade was calling to him. Corin looked around one last time. "I shouldn't do this," he said to himself, but his hand moved anyway. He gripped the sword. The moment he touched it, pain shot through his arm. The air turned electric. The lights on the walls flashed violently. The tomb shook and dust fell from the ceiling. "Stop, Corin!" I shouted. "You're waking something." With a deep breath, Corin pulled the sword. It slid out slowly, like it had been waiting for centuries. As the blade left her chest, the woman's eyes flew open, bright gold. Burning like stars, she gasped. Corin stumbled back, dropping the sword. The other 2 swords still pulsed in her chest, but now she was moving. Her fingers twitched. Her chest rose as she breathed. She looked at him, not with fear, but with something deeper. Recognition. She whispered one word. "Human." Then everything went dark. The tomb shook again, harder this time. Cracks ran across the floor. The glowing runes on the walls turned red. Corin grabbed the sword and ran. As he reached the door, a massive energy burst exploded behind him, sending him flying. His body hit the wall, and everything went black. But before he passed out, he saw her standing. The woman. Alive. With 2 swords still in her chest, and fire in her eyes. Corin's body lay motionless just outside the tomb. Dust settled over him. His helmet visor was cracked. His scanner was broken. Blood dripped from his forehead, but his chest still moved. He was alive. Barely. Inside the tomb, the woman slowly sat up. Her name was lost to time. Her memories were shattered. But one truth burned in her chest. Right between the two swords still lodged deep inside her heart, the human had awakened her. She stood on shaky legs. Her bare feet touched the cold stone floor after 1,000 years. The swords in her chest should have made her scream in pain, but they didn't. They were part of her now, part of her curse, part of her power. She looked around the tomb. The runes were red now, angry, pulsing like veins. The ancient lock that once kept her sealed had failed. Her eyes narrowed. She stepped out of the coffin, each movement slow and powerful. Her silver blue skin shimmered in the flickering light. Her long hair floated behind her like strands of starlight. The air around her felt heavier, like the moon itself was holding its breath. Then, she heard it, a soft moan. Her eyes snapped to the doorway. The human. The one who had pulled the first sword. She walked to him, stepping over cracked stone and fallen dust. Corinne blinked weakly. "What are you?" he croaked. The woman tilted her head. Her voice was calm and soft, but full of ancient sorrow. "I was once a guardian of peace," she said. "But they made me a weapon." She reached down and touched the side of his face. A golden glow flowed from her fingers into his wound. Instantly, the pain in Corin's head faded. His vision cleared. Did I die?" he asked. "No," she said. "You woke me. That is not death. That is purpose." Corin slowly sat up, still breathing hard. He looked at her, really looked. "There are still two swords inside you. How are you even alive?" "I do not live," she replied. "Not yet. One sword was human. The others are not. What happens if all three come out?" Corin asked, his voice dry. She looked away, toward the center of the tomb. Her hands clenched. "If the second is pulled," she said, "the curse will weaken. If the third, then I become what they feared most. I become war." Corin swallowed hard. "And who are they?" The woman did not answer. Instead, she looked up. Her eyes glowed brighter. "They're already watching. I can feel them." Before Corin could ask who she meant, a loud crack sounded in the distance above. Ground that boomed, that the tomb shook again. That then came the sound of engines, big ones. Corin's eyes widened. No, that can't be the Dominion. They shouldn't be here." The woman stepped back. "You brought them." When the sword was pulled, it sent out a signal. Corin stood up. "Listen. If they find you, they'll take you apart. Piece by piece. They don't care who you are." "I know," she said quietly. Corin checked his broken scanner. "No good." Then he looked at her. "Can you fight?" "I was made for that," she said, her voice steady. Another boom shook the ground. Above, the sky turned red as dropships pierced the clouds. Corin knew what was coming. Dominion scavengers. Soldiers in black armor. They destroyed everything they didn't control. And now they were coming for her. "We need to move," he said. "I cannot leave the tomb," she replied. "Not yet. The second sword must be removed." Corin looked at the frozen blade, icy blue and humming softly. "What happens if I pull it?" he asked. She paused. "Pain, memory, and the start of what comes next." Corin took a deep breath. Outside, the first dropship landed. "I'm not leaving you here," he said. "If I woke you up, I'm not letting you die again." He walked toward her, ignoring his fear. She looked into his eyes. "Then pull it," she said. His hands wrapped around the cold sword's hilt. It was freezing. His skin burned at the touch. His veins felt like they were turning to ice. With a deep cry, he pulled. The sword slid out slowly, and she screamed. Not in pain, in rage. A wave of energy burst from her chest, knocking Corin to the ground. The walls shattered. Symbols turned gold. And in her eyes, flames danced. She fell to her knees, gasping. Memories crashed into her mind, battlefields, betrayal, love, fire, and the sound of three names spoken over and over. Corin grabbed her shoulders. "Hey, are you okay?" She looked up at him, and for the first time she smiled. I remember now. Then she stood, and the sky above exploded. Smoke rose from the cracked surface of Varaxia's dead moon as the first Dominion ship slammed into the ground. Its engines burned hot and loud. From the ship's belly, soldiers in dark armor dropped like iron rain. Their helmets glowed red. Their rifles were already charged, but they weren't here for war. They were here for her. Inside the half-destroyed tomb, the woman stood tall. The second sword was now gone, pulled from her chest. Her body was trembling, but not from weakness, from awakening. The runes on the walls were golden now, bright like sunlight after 1,000 years of darkness. Her silver-blue skin shimmered as energy wrapped around her arms like living flame. Her memories once shattered were starting to come back. Corin, still catching his breath, stared in awe. You're changing." She didn't look at him. Her eyes were glowing gold, focused far above, through layers of stone and dust. She could feel the Dominion. She could hear them. "They think I'm a weapon," she whispered. Corin stood beside her. "Aren't you?" She finally turned her head. "I was a protector once. I guarded peace. I guarded love." Corin didn't understand everything, but he nodded. "Well, whoever you were before. They're not here now. And if we don't move, neither of us will be." The tomb rumbled again. The soldiers were getting closer. Corin pulled out his backup pistol, old, scratched, barely functional. "It's not much, but it shoots." The woman looked at the tiny weapon and gave us small smile. "I once broke a starship in half with my voice." Corin blinked. You win." They moved out of the tomb together. The air above was hot and thick. Fires burned where the dropships landed. The rocky hills were crawling with armored men, 20, maybe more. Corin ducked behind a fallen beam. One soldier spotted them. Target sighted. Human and unknown anomaly. The others aimed, but before they could fire, the woman raised her hand. The air pulsed. Without touching them, she sent 3 of the soldiers flying. Their armor cracked against the stone walls. Others opened fire, red beams slicing through the dust, but none hit her. She walked forward like a storm in human form. Corin followed behind, trying not to get in the way. He ducked when an explosion hit nearby, throwing rocks into the air. 2 soldiers ran toward him. He fired his pistol once. Twice, one blast hit the ground. The second hit the side of a soldier's leg, making him stumble. Then the woman stepped between Corin and the second soldier. She reached out and touched his chest plate. It melted. The man screamed as his suit fell apart in seconds. He dropped his weapon and ran. More ships landed in the distance. Corin looked up. "They just keep coming." The woman narrowed her eyes. "They want the third sword." Corin turned to her, confused. "The one still inside you?" "Yes," she said. "It's the sword of war. If it is pulled, I will no longer be myself. I will become what they built me to be." Corin stared at her. "Why would anyone build someone like you? Just to leave you buried?" She looked away, pain flickering across her face. "Because I disobeyed." More soldiers charged. Corin was out of bullets. The woman raised her arm again, but this time her hand trembled. Her energy was fading. The second sword's removal had weakened her more than she showed. Corin saw it. He stepped forward and grabbed her arm. "Come on, we need cover. There's a mining cave east of here. My ship is parked nearby." "I can't run," she said. "Then let me help you walk." Corin replied. Together, they moved through the smoke and fire, dodging gunfire and falling debris. Each step took effort. The woman's strength flickered like a dying star. Finally, they reached the cave. Corin dragged an old metal door shut behind them, blocking the entrance. Silence for a moment. Then, inside the cave, she collapsed. Corin knelt beside her. "Stay with me. I'm not dying," she whispered. Just remembering, her voice was softer now. "I had a name. Once, she said. Corin leaned in. What was it? She closed her eyes. Kalira, she breathed. That was my name. I was born on the sky world of Elion. I was chosen by the Council of Flame. I fought to protect the galaxy from the dark tide. Corin listened carefully. What happened? Her hands trembled. They betrayed me. They forced the swords into me. Because I refused to burn a world full of children. Corin's chest tightened. That's why they buried you, he said. Yes, she whispered. They said I would sleep forever. But you didn't, Corin said. Because I pulled. The first sword. Kalira opened her eyes. And now the galaxy will burn again. Unless we stop them. Outside, the Dominion gathered their heavy weapons. Inside, Kalira held the last sword. And a choice. Asterisk, the cave walls were dark and silent. But outside, the world was burning. Corin sat beside Kalira, watching her breathe. She looked strong but weak at the same time. She had pulled 2 swords from her own chest, and yet she lived. Or maybe she was something more than alive. She had told him her name, Kalira. She had told him what happened. Betrayed, buried, feared. But now, there was 1 sword left inside her. The third one, the sword of war. Kalira's eyes opened slowly. Her golden gaze looked tired now. The Dominion will not stop. Corin wiped the sweat from his face. Yeah, they've already called in reinforcements. I counted 4 more ships. From the ridge. If we stay here, we're dead. Kalira sat up, though her body shook. Then I must take the sword out. Corin stared at her chest. The final blade was different. Its hilt was ancient, made of dark stone and gold veins that glowed red. It looked angry. What happens if you do it? Corin asked. Kalira paused, her voice lowered. I lose myself. I was created to be a perfect weapon. The sword of war was the final key. It unlocks my true form. And is that good or bad? I don't know, she said. But once it's done, I may not remember you. Corin looked away, his jaw tight. I don't want you to lose who you are. She smiled softly. Then give me a reason not to. For a moment, silence filled the cave. Then dash boom. The ground shook. Corin's wrist buzzed. A voice came through, full of static. To any life form inside the caves. This is Dominion Commander Varus. Surrender the artifact. The human will be spared. The weapon will not. Corin cursed under his breath. They're blocking signals. They know exactly where we are. Kalira stood up, her strength returning for a moment. Then I go to them. He jumped to his feet. Not like this. You're not ready. I will never be ready, she said. That's the truth. I was not meant to survive this long. My body runs on borrowed time, but I still have a choice. Corin looked into her eyes. Don't pull that sword. There's got to be another way. She reached up, fingers wrapping gently around the last sword's hilt. If there is, I don't see it. He stepped forward quickly and placed his hand over hers. Then let me be the one, he said. Her eyes widened. No, it will destroy you. Maybe, Corin said. But you saved me. Twice. I'm not just going to stand here while you lose. Everything. Kalira looked into his face, confused. Why do you care, human? Corin gave a small smile. Because maybe, just maybe, you were never just a weapon. She didn't stop him. Together, they gripped the sword. The metal was hot, burning hot. It pulsed with something ancient and alive. Then, with a scream of both flesh and steel, they pulled it, and the world shattered. Kalira collapsed to the floor, her body shaking violently. Her back arched, and energy exploded from her chest in blinding waves. The runes in the cave lit up red, then white, then gold. Corin flew back, hitting the wall hard. He gasped for breath, eyes wide. Kalira's body lifted off the ground, floating. Fire danced around her. Her skin glowed. Her hair turned white like Snow. The air around her crackled with power no human had ever seen. Her voice changed, deeper, sharper, full of command. I remember everything. She floated back to the ground and opened her eyes. They were no longer gold. They were silver flames. Corin crawled forward. Kalira? She looked at him, but not through him. Her gaze was focused, aware. Still her, Corin. She said, "You brought me back." He sighed in relief. "I thought I lost you." She looked down at the 3 scars on her chest. "You didn't. You reminded me who I was before the swords. Before the war. I don't have to be their weapon," Corin nodded. "Then let's end this. Together." Kalira turned toward the cave entrance. Outside, the Dominion soldiers were setting up heavy cannons. She stepped out into the light. They opened fire. She raised one hand and the blast stopped mid-air. Held in place. Then, with a flick of her fingers, she sent the energy back. Boom. The entire ridge exploded. Soldiers screamed. Kalira walked forward like a goddess reborn. Corin followed her, still clutching his side. As the dust cleared, only one man stood in her path. Commander Veras. He stepped down from his ship, armor shining black like obsidian. "You shouldn't be awake," he growled. "You were meant to rot in silence." Kalira narrowed her eyes. "And yet, here I am." Varas pointed his weapon. "Then die." Standing. Kalira didn't flinch. Her hands glowed. Corin raised his pistol, and the final battle began. The battlefield burned. Kalira stood in front of the Dominion army, her silver-flamed eyes locked on Commander Varas. She was glowing with power, but not out of control. The sword of war had awakened something old inside her, but Corin's voice still echoed in her heart. She was not just a weapon. She was a choice. Commander Varas stepped forward, his black armor hissing with steam. He held a large plasma blade, pulsing with red energy. "You were the Dominion's greatest weapon once," he shouted. "You could have led us to conquer every star." "I chose peace," Kalira said. "You chose weakness," Varas growled. Without another word, he attacked. His plasma blade came down fast, but Kalira moved faster. She raised her arm, and a shield of light formed in front of her. The weapon struck it with a loud crack, sending shockwaves into the air. Behind her, Corin dropped to one knee, shielding his face from the force. The 2 beings clashed like gods. Energy exploded around them. Light and shadow danced through the smoke. Kalira's power was wild but focused like lightning held in a bottle. Varas was strong, brutal, and relentless. Every hit from his blade cracked the ground. Corin watched from the edge, heart pounding. This wasn't just a fight, it was history finishing when it started. Kalira shouted as she pushed Varas back. "You were the one who ordered my burial. You gave the command to silence me. You were dangerous," he roared. "Too human. Too soft. I gave you purpose." "You gave me pain," she hissed. With a sudden burst of speed, Kalira vanished and reappeared behind Varas. She struck with her fist, sending him flying into a rock wall. He hit the stone hard, armor sparking, then rolled back to his feet. "You're still bound to your past," he spat. Kalira didn't answer. Her focus was clear now. Then Corin saw something. Above them, more Dominion ships were arriving. Too many, and one of them wasn't just a troop carrier, it was a planetary disruptor. A weapon that could break open the entire moon. "They're going to destroy this place," Corin yelled. "They'll bury you again." Kalira turned her head slightly. "Then we end it before they can." But suddenly, she stumbled. Her knees buckled. The sword scars on her chest glowed, but now they flickered. She had pushed her power too far. Varas grinned and charged. "Kalira!" Corin screamed. Without thinking, Corin ran forward. He jumped between her and the commander. Varas slashed, and Corin blocked the blade with his forearm shield. Sparks flying everywhere. He fired his pistol into Varas's side. Again and again, until the power cell overheated and burst. Varas shouted in pain and kicked Corin back, but it was enough. Kalira rose again. Now her voice echoed like thunder. You will not touch him. She unleashed a wave of pure light that knocked Varas down flat. Corin struggled to his feet, coughing. I'm okay. Kalira stood above Varas now, her palm glowing. Do it, Varas hissed. Kill me. Be what they made you. But Kalira did not strike. She looked down at the man who buried her and said quietly, no. She turned her hand and let him live. You lose, she said. Because I choose not to become your monster. Varas growled, spitting blood. You're weak. Kalira looked back at Corin. No, I'm strong. But then the sky above split. The disruptor weapon activated. A red beam of energy began building above them, shaking the ground. The entire moon trembled. The Dominion wasn't going to win. They were going to erase everything. Corin stared in horror. They're going to fire. We have maybe 2 minutes. Kalira's body began to float again. Then I must stop it. Corin grabbed her arm. You'll die. She looked at him sadly. Not if I'm already gone. Before he could speak. Again, she leaned in and pressed her forehead to his. Thank you for remembering who I am, she whispered. Tell the stars I fought for peace. And with a final burst of light, she vanished, straight into the sky, up, through the clouds into the heart of the weapon. Corin fell to his knees, shouting her name. Then dash silence. And then boom. A massive white flash filled the sky. The weapon shattered into pieces. The ships broke apart. The energy waves spread across the moon like dawn when it cleared. There was nothing. No enemy. No weapon. No Kalira. Just peace. Corin stood slowly, alone on the broken ridge. He looked to the sky, his heart heavy. She was gone, but she had saved everything. She had chosen her path, and the stars would remember her name. Asterisk. 3 days passed. The moon of Varaxia was quiet now. No more explosions, no more soldiers, no more machines. The Dominion's fleet had vanished, destroyed in one final flash of white light. But Kalira was gone. Too, Corin stood alone on the ridge where she had disappeared. He hadn't moved in. Hours. The wind whipped dust around his boots, but he didn't feel it. His eyes kept scanning the sky, hoping she'd return, hoping she'd survived. But she didn't. Not even a trace of her body remained, just a gentle crater of scorched, silver dust where the final blast had begun. He dropped to one knee and placed his hand on the soft, glowing ground. You said the stars would remember you, he whispered. But I won't let them be the only ones. Corin knew what she had done. She hadn't just destroyed the weapon. She had erased herself to stop it, and maybe, just maybe, she had saved something bigger than just a moon. Suddenly, his wristcom blinked weak signal. A message came through from a nearby human outpost. Explorer Wells, this is Station Echo. We picked up an anomaly. Something's heading toward US, not Dominion, not human either. Do you copy? Corin tapped his com. I hear you. What kind of anomaly? The voice replied, slower now. It's strange, energy-based, like a signal but alive. It's coming from orbit. Corin stood up, hope flickering in his chest. Track it. I'm on my way. He rushed back to his ship. It was still damaged, but the core systems were online. As he sat in the pilot's chair, he looked at the small glowing crystal hanging from the dashboard, a piece of Kalira's tomb he had kept. I don't know if it's really you, he said softly, but I'm coming anyway. He fired the engines. 2 hours later, Corin arrived at Station Echo, a floating platform orbiting a small gas giant nearby. The station's crew looked shaken when he walked in. You said the anomaly is alive? Corin asked the chief engineer. The woman nodded. We don't understand it, but it's speaking in pulses, like it's trying to communicate. Corin stepped into the control room, eyes fixed on the large viewing screen. What he saw made his breath catch. A swirl of golden and silver light hovered in space, gently spinning like a quiet storm. Inside the swirl, something was pulsing, like a heartbeat. "Zoom in," Corin said. The screen sharpened, and then he saw it. A face. Just for a moment. Kalira's face, eyes closed, peaceful, then gone. Corin stumbled back. "That's her. I saw her." The technician looked shocked. "You know that thing?" "She's not a thing," Corin said firmly. "Her name is Kalira. She saved us." The engineer hesitated. "Then what is she now?" Corin stared at the glowing swirl. "I think she became something else. Not just energy, not just light. Maybe a soul that chose peace over power." A soft tone rang from the monitor. One of the readings spiked. Words appeared on the screen translated from Pulses, Corin. Everyone in the room froze. Corin stepped closer. "Kalira, is that really you?" Another message appeared. "I am not whole, but I remember you." His voice trembled. "What can I do?" "Help others choose as I did." The swirl began to fade, gently drifting back into the stars. Corin placed his hand on the screen. "Will I see you again?" The final message came through, "In every life saved, I will be there." Then the signal was gone. Silence. Corin wiped his eyes and turned to the crew. "Record everything. The Dominion will return someday. We need to be ready, not with weapons, but with people who remember what she stood for." The engineer nodded. "What do we call her?" Corin thought for a moment, then said, "The Guardian of Peace." Later that night, Corin stood on the station's observation deck. Alone again, but not lonely. He looked at the stars, knowing she was somewhere among them, not as a soldier, not as a weapon, but as a choice that changed the galaxy. And as long as he lived, he would carry her story forward. 1 year later, the stars above Earth looked peaceful, calm, safe. But peace didn't come easy. Corin Wells sat in the center of a massive hall inside the newly formed Galactic Unity Archive, a place built to remember those who saved, not destroyed. All around him were banners of different worlds: humans, Vulpine, Zentari, even former Dominion species had sent diplomats. Today wasn't about politics. Today was about her. Corin stood before a crowd of thousands. Behind him, a large hologram shimmered, an image of Kalira, eyes closed, arms folded over her chest, with 3 swords gently floating behind her in a circle of light. He stepped forward to the podium. His voice was steady. His heart was not. "Most people here today have heard her name," he began, "but I lived long enough to forget it once. And that was the mistake I'll never make again." The hall fell silent. Her name was Kalira, not a weapon, not a code, not a thing to be feared. She was once made to burn planets, but instead she chose to save them. He paused, looking up at her hologram. 1 year ago, she gave her final breath to stop the Dominion's greatest weapon. She didn't just save this galaxy, she saved our future. People listened, some with awe, some with tears. Corin continued. "I didn't know her long, just a few days. But those days changed my entire view of power. She had every reason to destroy us, but she remembered who she was. And when I asked why she spared me, her answer was simple: because I can." He looked at the crowd. "That's the power she showed me. The power to choose mercy over rage, hope over hate." A small child in the front row raised his hand. Corin smiled. "Go ahead," the boy asked softly. "Is she ever coming back?" Corin knelt to the boy's level and gently took something from his coat, a small glowing crystal. He held it out to the child. "She never really left," Corin said. "She's in the stars, in the peace we now have. Every time someone helps, instead of hurts, she lives again." The child held the crystal like treasure. Corin stood and turned back to the crowd. "And so," he said, "let today be remembered not as a victory, but as a beginning." He stepped aside. Behind him, The hologram changed. Kalira now stood tall, arms out, the swords floating like wings. Her eyes were open, glowing not with war, but wisdom. Below the image, words appeared in every language. She chose peace. So, can we? Later that night, Corin walked through the memorial gardens alone. Each stone had a name of someone who died in the Dominion Wars. But one stone stood by itself, made of white metal and etched with alien runes. Kalira, guardian of peace. Corin placed a small flower at the base. You saved them all, he whispered. And you saved me. Suddenly, his wrist blinked. A faint signal. Strange energy. Not again, he muttered, smiling slightly. He tapped it. Well's here. What is it? A voice replied, soft, familiar, and unmistakably hers. You kept your promise. Corin froze. His mouth opened slightly. Kalira? Not as you knew me, the voice said, but part of me still remains. Corin felt a lump in his throat. Where are you? In the echoes, in the light, and in you. He wiped his eyes. Do you remember me? He asked, always. Then the signal faded. Corin looked up at the stars. They sparkled softly, one brighter than the rest. Just for a moment, it pulsed. Like a heartbeat. He smiled through tears. No more swords, he whispered. No more tombs, just peace. He turned and walked away, not as a soldier, not as a hero, but as a man who once met someone the galaxy had tried to forget, and he would never let them forget her again. The end.